Hare Hare Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Joy Joy Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
This needs to go on the phone, and it needs to be disentangled. And this needs to be plugged in. This goes in here. Like this. Plug that in. Just watch this. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashadadeshatarine Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Godadhara Shirivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. What's in the bottom?
Yes.
Next space. So we're going to read something that answers a question that was answered last time. Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Ram Hare Hare. We talked a little bit about last night about the story in which Chota Haridas committed suicide. So I'm going to read that story. At the end of the story there's an explanation which I alluded to last night, but we didn't actually discuss it. So I'm just trying to find the beginning. I was just going to read the explanation, but I think it's better we read the story first. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Well, I'll tell the story briefly. I think I told it last night. There was a sannyasi named Chota Haridas. Unlike, different from Thakur Haridas, Chota means junior or small. Right? Any Bengalis here? Small, or junior. So you have Haridas Thakur, then you have Chota Haridas. He was a sannyasi. And as we said last night, Lord Chaitanya displayed a pastime to use Chota Haridas's so-called mistake as a warning to other sannyasis to be strict. So it was found out that he went begging from a woman, and in some places it said that he lustfully glanced at her, which doesn't entirely make sense because she was like the age of his mother. Can somebody go into my Facebook page and see if you can actually hear, because sometimes when you plug the mic in after Facebook is open already, it doesn't work.
It says slow connection.
What?
It says slow.
Are we connected to the Wi-Fi here? Can you check? I'm not concerned about... Hare Krishna. You can hear me, yeah, okay. You can hear? You have the Wi-Fi connection? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's okay. You can hear?
It should be in the back. The wire.
So we'll begin reading as the story is already going on. So, as I said, some places it is said that he was begging and he lustfully glanced after a woman. Or he shouldn't have begged from a woman. Whatever the case is, Lord Chaitanya decided to chastise him. And of course, the devotees were thinking what he did wasn't really bad. And they were trying to... let's see what happens in their discussions with Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya is the ocean of mercy. Who can understand him? When he chastises his dear devotees...
What verse is that?
that's Antya 2, 143. Antya 2, 143. When he chastises his dear devotees, he certainly does so to reestablish the principles of religion. You got it?
No, I didn't find it.
Antya 2, 143. Antya. It's called, the chapter is the chastisement, the title is the chastisement of Junior Haridas. Text 143.
Which chapter is that?
2.
Sorry. Text 43?
143.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'll read the verse again. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the ocean of mercy. Who can understand him? When he chastises his dear devotees, he certainly does so to reestablish the principles of religion. So, in other words, Lord Chaitanya seems to be doing something that's unfair, but Krishnadas Kaviraj says he's the ocean of mercy. So just to kind of give a disclaimer that he can't do anything unfair. Right? Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, in this connection, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the ocean of mercy, chastised Junior Haridas, although Junior Haridas was his dear devotee, to establish that one in the devotional line engaged in pure devotional service should not be a hypocrite. For a person engaged in devotional service in the renounced order, having intimate relationships with women is certainly hypocrisy. This chastisement was given to Junior Haridas as an example to future sahajiyas who might adopt the dress of the renounced order to imitate Rupa Goswami and other bona fide sannyasis, but secretly have illicit connections with women. If you want to hear an interesting story, about 10 years ago I went to Orissa, and at that time the government was cracking down on false gurus, because there were many false gurus in that state. And some of the biggest gurus had to leave before they got arrested. So they were most of them were leaving Orissa because the government would get them. So it's very common. I mean, you probably know this, right? what I would say, it's very uncommon that there's some popular guru that's not doing something illicit with women. It's not, that it always happens. It's quite common. There's rumors surrounding many so-called gurus. Of course, Mahaprabhu knows this, and specifically amongst the group called Sahajiyas, they often imitate Krishna and think you have to do sadhana like your sadhana is like gopi sadhana, like get gopis and do sadhana with your gopis, like basically imitate Krishna. In order to understand gopi bhav, you have to have your own gopis. Things like this. I mean, for us as Westerners, it's like we can't believe that people would rationalize things in this way, but it does happen. So Mahaprabhu wanted to establish, if you're renounced and you even glance at a woman, that's it, you're a hypocrite. Hare Krishna. To teach such men, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chastised his dear devotee Haridas for a slight deviation from the regulative principles. So this is the woman he glanced at or begged rice from, his so-called intimate associate. Srimati Madhavi Devi was a highly elevated devotee. Therefore, approaching her to ask for some rice to serve Sri Chaitanya was certainly not very offensive. Nevertheless, just to preserve the regulative principles for the future, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enforced the hard and fast rule that no one in the renounced order should intimately mix with women. Maybe he went to the house, he was begging, so now it's him and her, nobody else. Nobody's home. He doesn't go in the house, but according to strict principles of sannyas, that could be considered associating with a woman. At least at that time, it would be considered breaking a principle. Had Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not chastised Junior Haridas for this slight deviation, so-called devotees of the Lord would have exploited the example of Junior Haridas to continue their habit of illicit connections with women unrestrictedly. Indeed, they still preach that such behavior is allowed for Vaishnava. Now, we were so fortunate that Prabhupada was so strict, but at the same time so lenient. He combined both. He had his boundaries, but his boundaries didn't restrict devotion. There was a time, this could be considered controversial in light of this story, but Prabhupada obviously didn't think so. There was one devotee, her name was Kaushalya. Probably when she was 19, she came to India, 19 or 20. And she had some service in Jaipur with another devotee. I'm not sure, maybe it was overseeing the production of deities or deity paraphernalia. And while they were there, they got some assistance from someone that enabled them to do a Pandal program. And so she was very successful doing the Pandal program. I think it was when she did the Pandal program. Prabhupada was so happy that he thanked her, and then he put her head on his lap and he just rubbed her head. He was, he's 80. At that time, he's probably 77 and she's 19, so it's like granddaughter. But, according to this story, it's like, whoa. But, of course, Prabhupada never deviated, and we're so fortunate that there is nothing clouding his character as there is clouding the character of some gurus. It is strictly not allowed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the teacher of the entire world, and therefore he enforced the exemplary punishment to establish that illicit sexual connections are never allowed by Vaishnava philosophy. This was his purpose in chastising Junior Haridas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in fact the most magnanimous incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he strictly prohibited illicit sex. So Prabhupada often told this story in relation to this story. He told another story, and it was the story of Shivananda Sain, and I believe when his wife was pregnant, he either wanted her, Mahaprabhu, to give a name, or he wanted Mahaprabhu to see her. Anyway, he brought his wife, pregnant wife, to see Mahaprabhu and to bless her and bless the child. So Prabhupada used that as an example that because he was a grihasta and that he brought his wife and there was nothing wrong with that because it was appropriate for that ashram. And then he cited Chota Haridas when his behavior was not exactly appropriate for that ashram. So, if a grihasta was begging, it would be a problem. Obviously today even it's not really a problem, but Mahaprabhu wanted to just use that as an example. But when Prabhupada told this story, he would say, don't be a hypocrite. Go into the ashram in which you can live genuinely. So whatever that ashram is, just be genuine about it. And if you're going to go in the renounced order, you have to be renounced. Obviously. So Prabhupada is talking here about illicit sex in relation to Sahajis, as we mentioned, because somehow or other they rationalized, conceptualized the practice of illicit sex as like a sadhana of all things. And so it just shows that the nature of the cheating propensity and the devious nature of the mind, that the conditioned soul so much wants to imitate Krishna that they can concoct strange ideas in the name of bhakti. And that happens all over the place. Right? There was one guru, I was told, I don't know, I was told that before any of his disciples had children, he had to purify them by doing you know what. Hare Krishna. Yes. Text 144. After all the devotees saw this example, a mentality of fear grew among them. Therefore, they all stopped talking with women, even in dreams. In connection with Sri Sambhasana, talking with women, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that talking with women for the purpose of mingling with them for sense gratification, subtle or gross, is strictly prohibited. Chanakya Pandit, the great moral instructor, says, Matrivat Paradareshu. Not only a person in the renounced order or one engaged in devotional service, but everyone should avoid mingling with women. In other words, for sense gratification, one should consider another's wife his mother. So there should be great respect amongst the sexes. Yes. So I have a disciple, he's coming here this weekend, and he told me, when he grew up, he's I think 67 now, he told me, the culture of India at that time when he grew up is that you would have, in the university, I'm not sure how it worked, but you would have basically the same students in one class, maybe different teachers would come in, but you'd have the same students together all day. But not only all day, he said, like the whole time, like 3 years or 4 years, it was the same students. And he said no man ever spoke to a woman, and no woman ever spoke to a man in that class. So that was, I guess, maybe 40 years ago. Isn't that interesting? That was just the culture. It was just like normal, you know. And so we hear that and we go, oh my God, that's so, that you can put your adjective there. It's so, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's interesting and important to point out that the way our culture is today is not the way it normally has been in the history of the world, aside from maybe some, like Greek and Roman, when they went a little extravagant. But generally in society, you know, these things are fairly well restricted. So even though it sounds very Victorian, that you wouldn't even talk to a woman in class, and that's like, wow, weird. For them it was normal, it was just the culture. And Prabhupada said exactly the same thing when he went to school. He said, we wanted to talk to the women, but we couldn't because the culture prevented it. So you might think, it's pretty conservative, but it did avoid illicit sex. It was pretty hard to have illicit sex. I mean, it would be obvious. So anyway, I think some things that Prabhupada says that sound very conservative 100, 200 years ago were not. Were just normal. I won't say anything more. I don't want to agitate anybody more than I already have. Text 145. In this way, a complete year passed for Junior Haridas, but still there was not a sign of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy towards him, so he was rejected, apparently, as I remember. Thus, at the end of one night, Junior Haridas, after offering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu his respectful obeisances, not rejected, but chastised. I'm not sure he was rejected. Doesn't sound like he was rejected, he was chastised. After offering obeisances, he departed for Prayag without saying anything to anyone. You know what happens next? State. Junior Haridas had conclusively decided to attain shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus he entered deep into the water at Triveni, the confluence of the Ganges and Jamuna at Prayag, and in this way gave up his life. So he somehow or other put something heavy on his body, most likely, and drowned himself. Now some of you know this story. When one of the sannyasis read this story, he asked Prabhupada if a sannyasi falls down, should he commit suicide? And Prabhupada said yes. Prabhupada didn't mean he should, but he said yes, that's the principle. So a lot of times when Prabhupada would explain something, he would explain a principle, but we didn't always know that he didn't want us to execute that principle. Because Haribo Jai, straight from Lithuania, they have arrived. Sodamai, you'll be happy to know I'm not going to Calcutta on Saturday. I'm staying for 2 more days. So we can have more fun here. Yes. Jasodamaya was here last year, but that little girl wasn't. I mean, both of them weren't. Yeah, 2 little girls, yeah. So, you just want to move up and...
Space here?
Yeah, you can sit right here. Front row seat. Yeah, so it's a very unfortunate incident that happened. The sannyasi had asked Prabhupada, I think many of you, how many of you know this story? Not that many. Really, it's interesting. Where have you all been? What have you been doing? So it happened here in Mayapur. I was actually here. It was 1975. It happened here in Mayapur. So he had read this, sannyasi had read this story. So apparently he was having some difficulty. I know him well, and I think he's so sincere, difficulty might have been just thoughts that sannyasi shouldn't have, not that he did anything. Or somebody said he was married before he was a sannyasi, and he might have spoken to his wife or had some connection, and he was feeling bad about it. And so he asked Prabhupada, should a sannyasi, if he falls down, should he commit suicide? Prabhupada said, yes, that is the principle. So this is such an important point. And it's difficult to ascertain how to apply this point, but sometimes Prabhupada says a principle that he doesn't intend us to practice. Or something is said to not be taken literally. Like in the Shastra it says, if you hear somebody blaspheming the Lord, you should either cut his tongue out or leave. So I never heard Prabhupada actually tell us to do that when someone was blaspheming. And I'm sure most devotees, hopefully all, never thought that that's exactly what we're supposed to do. I read somewhere, yeah, if you're a Kshatriya, then that's what you do. But that's what Kshatriyas do. But it's, stop, it's so bad, you have to stop them. If you cut their tongue out, they can't talk. You have to stop them from talking. Or obviously leave, don't listen. But it's interesting because there are things occasionally that Prabhupada says that we never did. He never asked us to do, although they're stated in his books or he's stated in a class. But it's more like a principle. Like, this is the principle. Yes.
Is that Vishnu Jan Swami?
Yeah, Vishnu Jan Swami. So what happened was, it was, I don't know, maybe divine arrangement or unfortunate or something. So Prabhupada said, yes, that's the principle. And then Vishnu Jan heard that, and then he went to the back. Then Prabhupada said, but we don't do this. But he didn't hear that. And that day he left, and nobody saw him ever since. And I think there were rumors that somebody saw him going to the same place that Junior Haridas went to. And anyway, we've never seen him before. We never saw him after that. So, it's very quiet. How long is that going to last? We can all pray for Priya, that she's just shanti, shanti. Okay. Anyway, and then you're thinking, well, how would I know? How would I know if Prabhupada says something that I'm not supposed to do it? Sometimes it's just a matter of common sense. And then you could ask, but what if I don't have common sense? And Prabhupada said, well, find somebody with common sense and ask them. Prabhu, do you think I should kill myself? Or what do you think? I read this verse. I was out on Sankirtan, I'm a brahmachari, and I was, distributing books, and I saw this woman, and she was so beautiful, I wanted to hug her. You think I should kill myself? Just make sure the person you ask has common sense. Because if he's not, he might say, yeah, I think you should. It says it right in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In a spiritual, this is text 149, in a spiritual body resembling that of a Gandharva, Junior Haridas, although invisible, would sing at night for sweet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to hear. No one but the Lord, however, knew of this. So he committed suicide, but he became a Gandharva. He likes to sing, and Gandharvas know how to sing. One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired from the devotees, where is Haridas? Now you may bring him here. Of course, Lord Chaitanya knows what's happening. The devotees replied, one night at the end of a full year, Junior Haridas got up and went away. No one knows where he has gone. While hearing the devotees lament, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was mildly smiling. Thus all the devotees were very much astonished. Why is he smiling? What's funny about that? One day, Jagat Ananda, Sarup, Govinda, Kashishvar, Shankara, Damodar, and Mukunda all went to bathe in the sea. They could hear Haridas singing from a distant place as if calling them in his original voice. That would make a good movie, wouldn't it? They go to the sea in the morning to take their bath and they hear Hare Krishna. In the distance. Krishna. Well, I can't imitate a Gandharva, that's for sure, but you could imagine what it sounded like. No one could see him, but they could hear him singing in a sweet voice. Haribol. Therefore, all the devotees headed by Govinda made this guess. I better not sing, because you'll sing also. Haridas must have committed suicide by drinking poison. And because of this sinful act, he has now become a Brahmana ghost. That's what they thought. We cannot see his material form, they said, but still we hear his sweet singing. Therefore, he must have become a ghost. Srub Damodar, however, protested. Srub Damodar knows everything. Srub Damodar is like, when someone had a poem that they wanted to recite to Mahaprabhu or a song or something they wrote, he wouldn't hear it. He would say, you have to let Srub Damodar hear and then Hare Krishna. Oh, let's pretend she's not here. Okay. Srub Damodar would have to listen to it and make sure it was correct philosophically and according to rasa, otherwise he wouldn't give it to Mahaprabhu. So Srub Damodar is saying, you've misunderstood, he's not a ghost. So this is what Srub Damodar said. Junior Haridas chanted the Hare Krishna mantra throughout his entire life and served the Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya. Moreover, he is dear to the Lord and has died in a holy place. Haridas cannot have been degraded. He must have attained liberation. This is a pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's. You will understand it later. So Srub Damodar understood everything. And that's the symptom of a very advanced devotee. When everyone's bewildered, they understand. And you know what's really, really important for all of us? Have you ever heard a Prabhupada's story and you're thinking, that doesn't sound right? You ever heard one of those? Well, as you learn more about Prabhupada, sometimes you'll hear a story and you may think, this doesn't sound like Prabhupada. He wouldn't do that. Or he wouldn't say that. And so if you know Prabhupada really well, like someone like Shruta Kirti who served him, sometimes devotees will say things and they'll say, no, either Prabhupada never said that, or Prabhupada would never say that. Like he knew Prabhupada. So Srub Damodar understands the mind of Mahaprabhu. Disciples meant to understand the mind of their guru. So if someone says, my guru said this, you could say, yes, that sounds right, or no, he would never say that. So we have to be that way with Shastra. And so advanced devotees, they understand the moods and minds of their lords. He explained how Junior Haridas had made his resolution and had thus entered the waters at the confluence of the Jamuna and Ganges. Hearing these details, Srivas Thakur and the other devotees were very surprised. And they all said, wow. It's right there. And they all said, it's in text 161.5. They all said, wow. Wow. Oh, that's good. At the end of the year, Shivananda Sen came to Jagannath Puri. Okay, so I think things are changing here in the story. Srivas Thakur, he came and he asked Mahaprabhu, where's Junior Haridas? The Lord replied, a person is sure to achieve the results of his fruitive activities. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these details, he smiled in a pleased mood and said, if with sensual intentions one looks at a woman, this is the only process of atonement. So, as we said before, he's teaching sannyasis. Of course, For us, ordinary people, Prabhupada never dealt with us this way. He was like, yeah, if you don't look at a woman sometimes with a lusty glance, it's like you're not an ordinary man, right? But don't act on it. That's how Prabhupada taught us. Don't act on it. I mean, try to avoid it, of course. But if you can't, you're a young man, whatever your condition, at least don't act on it. And that's, in a sense, almost as good. Because if you're highly conditioned, you'll think in a certain way. But if you don't act on it, then that's the best you can do, right? I mean, it's like we're going out on Sankirtan. When I was younger, sometimes we would go out during the week to shopping centers. And the shopping centers during the week, it's all women shopping for groceries. So the brahmacharis are distributing books, mostly all day to women. Do they ever become disturbed? Sometimes, naturally. They're all young men. But Prabhupada said, if you sincerely try to distribute books, Lord Chaitanya will always protect you. Even if you become disturbed, he'll always protect you. Nothing's going to happen. It's extremely rare if any brahmachari ever had a problem. I mean, actual incident. Maybe a problem in their mind, but... Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur remarks, whoops. Then all the devotees headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami concluded that because Haridas had committed suicide at the confluence of the rivers Ganges and Yamuna, he must have ultimately attained the shelter, lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur remarks that after one adopts the renounced order and accepts the dress of a sannyasi or Babaji, if he entertains the idea of sense gratification, especially in relationship with women, the only atonement is to commit suicide at the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna. So, okay, I have to explain this. Why would you commit suicide? Well, there's a verse that said, the worst kind of suicide is to destroy your spiritual life. So the idea is, and again, we don't take it literally, but the idea is, before you destroy your spiritual life, you should kill yourself rather than kill your spiritual life. So if you're going downhill and you know you're going to crash, then rather than crash, just kill yourself, of course. It's figuratively, but it's saying, better to die than destroy your spiritual life. Of course, better save yourself than destroy your spiritual life. But it's just to emphasize this so a person can become sober about it. Yes?
So, in other parts of Shastra, if we commit suicide, we go to a ghostly plane, we don't get the benefit of life.
Mm-hmm.
So this is different for a pure devotee.
Yeah, especially because it was all a lila. Yeah. It sounds like Mahaprabhu is saying it was a glorious death. And he was, you could say ultimately he was just doing what I wanted him to do. Under the influence of the spiritual energy, so that's why he didn't die like an ordinary person and get ordinary karma for killing himself. Didn't we read in a story recently? Or was this the story? About someone else who, I think this was the story, yeah. Committed suicide, but he was with Mahaprabhu. He didn't get a ghost body. Yeah, you getting some ideas? My dear devotees, don't get any ideas. If I say, if you kill yourself, you'll become a devotee in your next life. No, I don't want to guarantee anything. But there's the story of Sanatana Goswami. He wanted to kill himself because he had some kind of, eczema or something. And he had sores on his body, so there's a lot of pus on his body. And when Mahaprabhu met him, Mahaprabhu embraced him. And he felt so bad that I've polluted the body of Mahaprabhu with pus. It's like if you're doing deity worship and you get pus on the deity. It's not good. You know, if you have blood on your hands, it gets on the deity. It's not good. So it's considered an offense if you put your hand in your nose, your ear, you touch your mouth. You have to wash your hands. So he felt like, I've offended Lord Chaitanya. And so he became so depressed he wanted to kill himself for that offense. Of course, Lord Chaitanya knows everything. So Lord Chaitanya went to him and said, Sanatan, your body belongs to me. And you have no right to take it. It's my property. You can't kill yourself because you don't own the body, I own it. So that's the attitude of a devotee. I don't have a right to take my life because I don't own my body. It's dedicated to Lord Chaitanya. He owns it. So that's generally the attitude of a devotee. This could lead into a whole other discussion. The discussions we've had in which sometimes you feel hopeless and your devotional service is so bad you kind of feel like, what's the point of living? But we never got any kind of indication from Prabhupada that's what we should do. No matter how bad things are. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of Mother Sachi, performs his pastimes, which greatly satisfy the ears and minds of pure devotees who hear about them. This incident manifests the mercy of Mahaprabhu, his teaching that a sannyasi should remain in the renounced order, and the deep attachment to him felt by his faithful devotees. It also demonstrates the glories of the holy places and shows how the Lord accepts his faithful devotee. Because he committed suicide in the holy rivers and he was liberated. Thus the Lord fulfilled 5 or 7 purposes by performing one pastime. The pastimes of Mahaprabhu are like nectar and they are deep like the ocean. People in general cannot understand them, but a sober devotee can. Please hear the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with faith and confidence. Do not argue, for arguments will produce a contrary result. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. So last night, I mentioned at the end of this chapter that there was an explanation of why this all happened. Of course, we've heard it. And would you like to hear? We still have time before Kirtan. This is a little philosophical, but you can handle it, right? Okay. She can handle it. Summarizing this chapter, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that one should derive from it the following lessons. Lesson number 1, lesson what? Lesson what? Lesson what? Numero uno. Number 1. Are you all still here? Yes. Lesson number what? 1. Okay. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is an incarnation of mercy, he nevertheless gave up the company of one of his personal associates, namely Junior Haridas, for if he had not done so, pseudo-devotees would have taken advantage of Junior Haridas's fault by using it as an excuse to live as devotees and at the same time have illicit connections. Such activities would have demonstrated the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, would have demoralized the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as a result, devotees would surely have gone to a hellish life in the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, you think Lord Chaitanya wanted to chastise Junior Haridas? Of course not. But this principle, as is being said, I think this is Bhaktisiddhanta saying this, that he gave up the company because Junior Haridas left his body, so he had to give up the company of his dearmost devotee to establish a principle. So it's a sacrifice by Lord Chaitanya. It was mercy. 2. By chastising Junior Haridas, the Lord set the standard for acharyas, or the heads of institutions propagating the Chaitanya cult, and for all actual devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to maintain the highest standard. So, Guru has to set a standard. Guru's acharya. So he set a standard. That, it's like, whatever Prabhupada gives us, then our job is to maintain that standard. You can't. So it's setting an example here of what we're supposed to do. Number what?
3.
Good. Thank you, students. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed that a pure devotee should be simple and free from sinful activities, for thus one can be his bona fide servant. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his followers how to observe the renounced order strictly. So in other words, like we said, if you're going to be a sannyasi, do it right. Don't be duplicitous. If you can't live as a sannyasi, don't be one. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to prove that his devotees are exalted and that their character is ideal. He kindly accepts his faithful devotees and teaches them how much tribulation and disturbance can be produced even by a slight deviation from the strict principles of devotional life. In other words, look what happened to Chota Haridas. So your little deviation can create all kinds of problems. By chastising Junior Haridas, Sri Chaitanya exhibited his mercy toward him, thus showing how elevated was Junior Haridas's devotion for him. In other words, Junior Haridas took the chastisement. He didn't, could you imagine? You're a brahmachari and you come back from Sankirtan and says, one of your godbrothers said, you sold a book to a woman going door to door and there was nobody there. And you go, but my Guru Maharaj, I didn't go in the house. But you were talking to her and you were severely chastised. How would you feel? Not happy, right? So Prabhupada's saying Junior Haridas took this chastisement in the proper way. By chastising Junior Haridas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is number 5, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his mercy toward him, thus showing how elevated was Junior Haridas's devotion for him. Because of this transcendental relationship, the Lord corrected even a slight offense committed by his pure devotee. Therefore, one who wants to be a pure devotee of Mahaprabhu should give up all material sense gratification. Otherwise, the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very difficult to attain. He's saying, if you want to be a pure devotee, you have to be prepared that your Guru may chastise you and correct you. Raise your hand if you want to be corrected. We're making appointments for tomorrow. You'll be beaten and chastised. What time do you want to see me? Yeah, most of us don't want to be chastised. But, yeah. But to be a disciple, you have to be willing to be corrected. Sometimes it's not easy, but... and the disciples should think, yeah, I was corrected, that's good, I didn't know. I was, it's not like you did anything wrong, you just didn't know. Right? If you know and you do it, again, then you did something wrong. If you did it and you don't know, it's not wrong. I mean, it's wrong, but it's not wrong, because you didn't know. If one dies in such a celebrated holy place as 6, as Prayag, Mathura, or Vrindavan, one can be relieved of the reactions to sinful life and then attain the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That also answers your question. He died in a holy place, even though it was suicide. Number 7, although a pure or faithful devotee may fall down, he nevertheless ultimately gets the chance to go back home, back to Godhead by the mercy of the Lord. Hare Krishna. So, would you like to ask some questions or make some comments? Yes?
But I guess along the same lines that he became a Gandharva So there's just an interesting.
Like why Gandharva?
Yeah. So it's an interesting question.
Because he was now in a. When you commit suicide, you don't get a physical body, so he's in a celestial body. That's my immediate gut reaction. Like, he's not seen anymore. And from that platform, he likes to sing for Lord Chaitanya, so he can sing. Sometimes I think, if I have to take birth again, let it be a Gandharva. Then I could win American Idol. No competition. Yes?
So for me, when I was reading,
No, don't think about your next birth as a Gandharva. Don't think like that. I was not serious when I said that. Yes?
there is some parallel between his establishing principles from the side of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a way that he's putting above principles and love. And
He's putting principles above love?
Yeah, because that is from
Yeah.
outside. If
Yeah.
you look from outside, it looks like that. Like Ramachandra, he's establishing principles, but Lord is under the principles. Krishna is actually the opposite. So for me, for a long time, it was actually like very sad to hear that actually first is principle and after that is the relationship. So here we can see that they are somehow suffering in that relationship, but on the other hand later I understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually gave the mercy to everyone silently, secretly, somehow, and it's not visible. Like Krishna.
Well, it's just we didn't think it was mercy. But I think we should assume it's always mercy. Shouldn't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So he gave mercy to Mukunda, that you won't give my mercy for like a long time. But Mukunda said, well, that's good, that's mercy. I mean, the ideal position is like whatever Krishna says or whatever Guru says, like, okay, mercy. Not easy, right? Yeah. I think it's important to see that whatever Krishna does is mercy. I don't know how I may not know how it is, but I should make that underlying assumption that it is, and I'll find out later how it is, right? Like you know, we've all had experience. Sometimes something happens. There's no way we can understand how this is good until later, when we see the results of it. I'm like, wow. And you ever have this one? I never want to go through that again, but I'm glad I did because it really helped me. But I don't think I could ever do it again. I was it was too much. I almost cracked, but I learned and gained so much from it.
Sometimes those occasions when it is very hard, even can put devotee to go down.
Yeah, but because we don't see it as mercy, then it could cause us to go down. But I mean, we can also make the mistake to think that Krishna's doing something when we're making a mistake and getting a reaction. We're thinking, why did Krishna do this to me? It's like you ever walk down, like here in Mayapur when it's wet, you can walk and slip like we did today. 2 devotees slipped, or 3. Was it 2 or 3? I think 2 slipped, and then no, I thought Balabhadra was the 3rd. 3. Abhinav and the other devotee, I don't know his name, and then Balabhadra. And so I could think, why did Krishna do that to me? And his wife's like, why don't you look where you're going? I knew that was going to happen. I told you shouldn't go down there, And Balabhadra's like, Krishna, why did you do it to me? And his wife's like, why did you do something stupid, right? So sometimes it's not Krishna, it's us. We weren't looking where we were going. And we don't always make that distinction, Krishna doesn't, it's like, I didn't study for my exams and I failed my test. That means Krishna doesn't love me. It's like the same thing, isn't it? You ever done that one? How come I'm not healthy? Maybe because all you eat is ice cream. Just saying. You know, no, Krishna doesn't love me. If he loved me, I could eat ice cream and be healthy. No, it doesn't work like that. If Krishna really loved me, I wouldn't have to chant my rounds and he would just give me love, right? Right? But we want to come to this position where when it doesn't look like love, we make an assumption. If it's not something I did and I'm getting a direct reaction, that's Krishna's doing something. I mean, have you ever had this situation, you wanted something and Krishna would just put a wall in front of it? Every time you try to get it, it's like bang, you bang it. You didn't know the wall was there and you bang into it, right? And after a while, it becomes clear Krishna's saying, no, you're not going to get this, I don't want you to get it. And then you think about it later and you think, it's really good I didn't get it, because if I did, it would probably have harmed my bhakti. I don't think I could have handled it. So, you know, but while it's happening, Krishna doesn't love me, he's putting the wall in front of me. You know, and so in another frame of mind where I feel like, well, everything Krishna does for me is out of love, then when that happens, I would think, I guess this isn't good for me and he doesn't want me to have it. And he's just not making it happen. Or maybe I'm not qualified for it to happen, and when I become more qualified, he'll make it happen. So that's a better way to think. Because otherwise you feel like, why have you forsaken me? What did I ever do wrong? You know, I distributed so many books and still, you know, you married me to this awful guy, you know. Krishna says, you didn't distribute enough books to get a good one, that's why. No, but then, you know, you go through so many challenges together, you learn so much together, or it doesn't work out and you become really detached, and you become allergic to men, and you're like, I'm never marrying again, and you're happy, you know. There's different things happen, right? And you realize, well, without that experience, I wouldn't have understood things the way I do today. But in the moment, it seems like Krishna doesn't love me. Is it raining outside?
It's the fan.
Oh,
It's the fan in the back.
oh, okay.
Can you make it a little bit louder, please, because of the...
I can speak louder.
Thank you.
Who's next? Mathura Nata Dasa.
As we go through Anartha Nivritti and emotions come up like anger, hurt, pain, sadness with Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
how to be authentic with those with Krishna and not go down in our bhakti, lose faith, but actually develop.
I would rather, I would rather see it as my own challenge, not Krishna's. Krishna, I'm going to be real with you. Why'd you do that to me? That's not the attitude of a devotee. The attitude of a devotee is like, okay, so why am I like falling and crashing under this weight? Rather than, Krishna, why are you letting me crash under this weight? That's not the right attitude. Or Krishna, how? It's almost like, I don't know if you're saying this, but it sounded like you're saying, Krishna, how could you have done that to me? I want to be real with you and say, I didn't like that. Devotee wouldn't do that. Devotee would think, I have to be real with myself and deal with this. You know, the same point, like, is Krishna's mercy. I don't know how it is, but I'm going to make that assumption. And Krishna, so I would think it'd be more Krishna, help me deal with these feelings. I don't know what you meant by it. Did you mean like, you're like mad at Krishna?
No, more so like emotions are coming up, and a lot of time we say, oh, that's a negative emotion. I don't want to present that to Krishna.
Uh-huh.
We push it down
Uh-huh.
instead of
Well,
we offer everything to Krishna, right?
It depends. Depends. You have to give me an example.
I've seen devotees, I've heard, advanced devotees even saying they went through like a stage where they were really angry. There was anger coming up,
Yeah.
and they had to work through something with Krishna. It was like it's part of the relationship.
Yeah. So you have to work through it without committing offenses.
Right. That's what I'm saying. How to do it without committing any offenses.
I've never actually got angry at Krishna. I was just thinking about this the other day. I don't know if I could help you with this. But no matter whatever has happened to me in my life, I never for a second got angry with Krishna ever in my life, even before I was a devotee. My brain doesn't go that way. It's always like, I'm here in the world, I have my karma and I created it. Or it's Krishna's teaching me something. I never went to that. No matter what happened, I never thought like Krishna doesn't love me and he did something wrong to me. So that's the point I was making to Malika, that if there's a fundamental, everything is out of Krishna's love, it would be more difficult to end up like that. Maybe I'm not the best person to answer this question because I don't.
It's sometimes very difficult when somebody dies for you important and to not be angry on God.
But it's not like... It's not like, how should I say it? When these things happen, my immediate response is, these things happen. Like I'm in the place where they happen. And it's not a surprise because I've already been told they happen by my guru and by the Gita. So when it happens, it's like, okay, now you have all the tools and information to deal with it. And when you say become mad, who are you becoming mad at? Krishna for allowing material nature to take away your parent when they're 90? It's like normal, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I felt like what Prabhupada was giving us is he's like constantly preparing us for these things. You're like, there's going to be failures, there's going to be difficulties, there's going to be tragedies, and he's preparing us all the time. And preparing us not to blame Krishna for them. Like, if you don't want tragedies, don't take birth. There won't be tragedies. Yes?
I was just going to add to that because what Mathura Nata brought up is that it made me think of the forgiveness workshop. Because when I first met you, I did the forgiveness workshop. I just finished my master's in counseling psychology. I did the whole landmark curriculum, everything, coached. And then I did your workshop and I was like, I'm so mad at Krishna. And so then I got to heal that. I got to like release that. And then everything was easier. I realized that.
Well, we do release it. We do release it at the workshop. But we don't release it against Krishna. Or did you?
I did. So you were asking like, who are you? It was an exercise of groups. I was like, I looked deeply, and it wasn't anybody else except Krishna.
Yeah, some people are like that. I need to forgive Krishna. Okay.
I think devotees get sad and depressed too, like, oh, Krishna's, look at what's going on in my life right now. Why is it like this?
I am so trained to look at my life as my own creation that I just it's so hard for me to blame Krishna for that.
Well, I think that's part of the answer. Just seeing it as this is my creation, not to blame Krishna.
It's like blaming the teacher because you got bad grades. I'll go back to the other point. At least the way I've always processed it was like Prabhupada saying, this, and this is going to happen in life. It happens to everyone. And this is how you prepare for it. This is how you deal with it. And so when it happens, then what do? You should be prepared, right? You know that story, and maybe it's a joke, maybe it's a Christian joke. This man makes a deal with God. I need you to tell me before, when I'm getting close to dying, tell me so I can prepare. God says, okay, no problem. the man dies and he goes to heaven, and he said, God, you didn't tell me. It just died all of a sudden. You know that, Joe? And God says, I told you. Gray hair, wrinkles, arthritis, backache, bad knees, bad hips. I was like showing you were dying. You didn't get it. So, like if we look at the body, as the body ages, you can take care of it, but as it ages, certain things naturally degenerate. It's just the way it is, right? And we have a material body because we wanted it, and so these are the conditions, and we're going to have a mother and a father, and they're going to die. And, it's just like, wow, it's a bad deal. And I always think that even though it's a bad deal, the best deal is Krishna gave us all the instructions to be able to deal with it. That's his greatest gift. And if we don't use those instructions, then we've lost the greatest gift that Krishna's given us, and then we're just battling like everybody else, without any solace or any way to deal with it.
If you have this time to prepare, that's fine. If it's sudden and you are not prepared.
No, but we're preparing. I mean, we're preparing every day. That's my point. When Prabhupada, the Prabhupada was very interesting. I mean, the context I'm speaking is through my association with Prabhupada, who was transcendental. So he would say things like, I think I was telling the other day, when Prabhupada said there's going to be a world war and everybody was frightened, especially if you're living in a big city. If World War III is starting, and you live in New York City, okay, get out of there fast, right? You'll be very worried. And they were asking Prabhupada questions about it. Where do we go? What city? And Prabhupada was almost laughing. He said, what are you talking about? You're did you think you're not going to die? He was making joke with them. Well, you'll die now or in 10 years, but it's not. Because they were very frightened. They didn't know how to deal with it. And so Prabhupada was trying to teach them. It was a moment he could teach them. And then when he was in his last days, he would say, don't think you're not going to go through this also. So he's always trying to teach that, and sometimes it could be looked at as, well, he was not very, it was a little rough. People would come and say, my daughter's young, she's got this disease, she's dying. They'd be crying, and he was he didn't want to go there. It's not that he didn't have that nature, sympathetic nature, but as the guru, he wanted to teach a principle. And so, the mothers, just overwhelmed. And Prabhupada, is talking the philosophy. Here's the best story. If what I said just depressed you, I'll try to undepress you or refurbish you. This is such a beautiful story, but it makes the point really well. Some of you may have heard this story, but I'll repeat it again. It's worth hearing again. So, this is a story Borijan Prabhu tells, and he and his wife were the first devotees in Hong Kong, and they were the only devotees there. And his wife came to marry him, and he never met her until she came, and Prabhupada arranged it. So it's here's two people that don't know one another, are getting married, and they're living alone in Hong Kong. And if you've ever been to Hong Kong, everything is very small. The apartments are this apartment would be like a mansion in Hong Kong. Seriously, they're just this is a mansion in Hong Kong. He said it was so hard, it was so difficult. They were struggling like anything. And I've also had this experience, if you're married and you're preaching somewhere and your wife doesn't have any friends and you don't have any friends because you're just alone with one another, it's extremely difficult. You get lonely and it's really hard to stay there. And they struggled, and it was so bad that when Prabhupada came, she didn't even want to see him. She was just really she's having, I don't know the details, she was having a really hard time. And during that time, they didn't have much of a morning program, there were no other devotees, and Prabhupada, he knows everything, he said, what's your morning program? He said, Prabhupada, we really don't have one. He was so because it's that's the temple, so it should be the temple. You have to have a morning program. He was really strict and really heavy. And Borijan was saying, Prabhu was saying, like, we're out here struggling. It's so hard, and Prabhupada's being heavy on us that we didn't have a morning program. I was like, wow. Hold on. So, Prabhupada is somewhere else in the world, and he's talking to some devotees, and he says, Burijan Prabhu and Jagatarini are struggling so hard in Hong Kong. It is so difficult for them. And he's got tears in his eyes. Why didn't he show that there? Didn't he have that emotion? He had it, of course. But as the guru, he wanted to teach something else. And he didn't, I know it's hard, don't worry about the sadhana. You know, it's okay. Yeah. As the guru, sometimes Prabhupada just was like, no sentiment, nothing. I want to teach you something. Whereas inside, it looks like he doesn't have it, but he does. But he feels it's not the best thing for the disciple. So he was very much like that with the philosophy. Like, when are you going to learn? Look what I've taught you. Why you like this? And sometimes it really helped if you could take it, you know. Anyway, that's how I always felt. I always felt he was training us for the worst. And of course, it's never easy, but it's easier if you're a devotee. Now, that's the best I could offer. It's not, you know, to your question, it's not easy, but it's easier if you're a devotee, right?
Seems like it's based on our Shraddha, like how much faith we have.
Could be. Realization, faith, detachment, attachment to the people who died. Yeah, you know, you may think you're very detached until that loved one dies, but then you realize you're not. But that's also, it's information. It's, you know, it's like, wow, I need work. I need to work on my Krishna consciousness because I couldn't handle something. Or someone gets very upset with you and it becomes a problem for you and say, I couldn't even handle this. That's good information, isn't it? So, you know the example Prabhupada gives of the parrot. The parrot, you can teach a parrot to talk. Hello, Govinda. You ever hear a parrot say, Govinda?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. But whatever animal, who attacks a bird, whatever animal that is, I don't know. Then the parrot's like, rah, 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 rah. So Prabhupada gives that example, you know, you're chanting Hare Krishna, but when difficulty comes, And Bhagavatam says, you know, everything we're doing is preparing for death. And then we heard that story from one devotee who said that if you undergo difficulty in life and you can tolerate, then death is going to be easy. And then we said, you can tolerate Sankirtan. You can die easily anywhere, anytime. So I think it's important. I think it's important if we're looking at a situation, you know, a loved one leaves us or some difficulty, and we're just overwhelmed with grief. We can also think, okay, but I have these teachings. I have some shelter, you know. And it's not easy, but I have shelter, and it's easy. It's easier, and so the same answer for Materna, that, you know, we go through these things. And I mean, if I'm angry at Krishna, at least I know I shouldn't be. And I know ultimately it's really anger towards myself, isn't it? Right? Yeah. Hare Krishna. We should do kirtan, unless you want to stay up late tonight. I mean, I don't mind. But is anyone dying to say something or ask another question?
Gaia.
Gaia. Say it, Gaia. Tell it like it is.
No, so I was, so if we're taking everything as Krishna's mercy and every like moment is an opportunity to qualify ourselves, how do we discern between when we should continue pursuing
whatever attachment or desire, whatever, end up having it, and then using that as like an impetus to progress. And when it's, we should accept, okay,
this is dangerous.
Have that. So what is it?
Well, sometimes it's obvious because you try really hard and you just never get it. You don't know until you try. And sometimes it'll be indicating. And then of course you could say, well, maybe he wants me to try harder. And then you have the principle, over endeavor is a cause of fall down. So you're working really hard to get something and you're like minimizing your sadhana, working 18 hours a day and and it's just really hard and it's not happening. And you've ruined your sadhana trying to get it. That's not good. Right? And if you're trying to get something, you're really anxious to get it, but maybe it's unhealthy physically, emotionally, mentally. So those are other indications. And sometimes you have to be detached and just do it for Krishna's pleasure, whether it works or not. And be happy with that. Like whatever result is. And sometimes you have to be practical and say, well, I'm not getting results, so maybe it's not a good thing to do. Jackals, right? Is it jackals? Is that okay? I mean, every situation, could require some discussion. Sometimes it's not a matter of results. Sometimes it's just something that's really important for you to do as a service that really will help you. And so you do it even though there's not a big result because it inspires you. And it still helps people. So let's say you do kirtans, but you're only doing kirtans like for 10 people at a time, but it really inspires you. Krishnadas is huge, but he started doing kirtans at yoga studios for like 7 people doing yoga. And he had no plan that was going to go beyond that. So sometimes things take off over time. But it's just like, this is your dharma, this is what you do, so do it. That's also there. Do you know that, so often we think, I have to do this service because of A, B, and C, the mission, and it's going to help people and like that. And that's important, but Prabhupada said many times this service is really for our own purification. So if I'm doing a service and it's really helping me, I like to give class. Maybe there's only 3 devotees to give class to, but I prepare these classes and then I give them and I'm really absorbed and it really helps me. Yeah, okay, do it. That's a good excuse because it helps you. Does that help for now? Think about it. Think about it and see what happens. Yeah. Anything else? Last question. Okay.
I just thought whether to ask it or not because maybe not only I feel some things, but maybe other devotees. When you just hear about these leelas, about these situations, you understand that these devotees, they were on such a high level.
Yes.
And you can be even compared with this level. And maybe in till the rest of your life, you will never be on this level of these levels of humility, of this.
Yeah.
And how not to be discouraged with it.
Yeah.
Because you are not deserve this.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking in answering to Materna's question, is he still here? Yeah. I was thinking, and I think it'll answer your question, I was looking at my life, so there have been times as a devotee when things were depressing and difficult and so on. And my thought always was, don't give up. No matter what, just don't give up. Keep going, because Krishna consciousness is too important. All right, so we could apply the same thing to you. I'm not very humble, but don't give up. I'm not very this, but just keep going. Because if you give up, then definitely you'll never be any more humble than you are today or any better than you are spiritually. So it's so far and so difficult, but it's so valuable, and I can't give it up. I can't get it, but I can't give it up. I can't do it, but I can't give it up. So no matter how difficult it is, just keep doing it. And depend on Prabhupada's mercy that over time things will happen. And the other problem is we think, like, okay, I'm not that humble, but you're probably more humble than you were before, and humble in ways you maybe don't recognize. And also, maybe you don't recognize that humility is so difficult that it's like, it's a lifelong project, or lifetimes of projects. So, but I think also, based on what Prabhupada said, he's not saying like you have to be perfectly humble, pure devotee to go back to Godhead. It's just like, you serve me and be sincere, and I'll like take care of everything. And so, he can wash that pride all off at the last hour of your life.
And what about envy, for example? If you are envious in this life, if you get to Krishna, so you will find place, you will envy him and you will follow. No, you can't fall down.
If you're envious, you won't get that far.
Yes.
But Krishna can purify that. Why do you want to be envious?
I don't want to be bad. Sometimes you understand that it's so difficult to be pure.
Okay, here's a message to all of you. Sometimes you just have to stay in devotional service year after year after year, and one day, bingo, you figure it out. And you're like, okay, that's it for envy. It's stupid. It's over. I don't want it. And I understand why I'm envious. I'm jealous of these devotees. I'm insecure. I'm embarrassed when people are better. And you just come, after all these years of being a devotee, at some point you'll just come and just everything will look like, this is useless. This is a waste of my time. This is completely stupid. What am I doing to myself? And then all of a sudden the next day it's gone. But you had to stick around 30 years before you could get to that point. So that's why I always tell devotees, just stick around long enough, because magic happens. It's like, the nut is stuck to the screw and it's so tight you gotta just keep, it's not coming up, just keep trying, just keep doing it, and 30 years later it comes off after all that trying. It's like that. But if you give it up, then how will you ever, I don't know what humility is, but I know better than I did 20, 30, 40 years ago. And this envy thing, it's like if you want to overcome it, you will come to a realization someday that envy is like completely, it's like it has no utility in your life. It's only destructive. You can come to the point where you just detest it. You wouldn't even be envious. It's just like, that's not who I want to be anymore. I hate that person who used to be envious. I don't want to see that person again. You can come to that point, and then all of a sudden it's like it's not a problem. You just don't want it. That day is coming, devotees. That's good news, right?
It's hope.
Yeah.
Because now you understand. In your mind you understand. It's useless. You shouldn't feel this. But all in all, every time that some problem, and you understand that it's hidden. Envy is hidden under these actions or emotions or reactions.
Even materially, people hit a certain status and age of life where they're just like, they don't care what other people think. People can do whatever they want, doesn't bother them. So even materially, life prepares you to become a little more humble, a little less envious, And it's like when you're 60, 70 years old, you've had so many experiences and so many things, it's harder to be envious. You've had like 600 pairs of shoes, 432 saris, 87 sets of earrings. You've lived in 17 houses, you've had 14 cars, you've gone through 12 computers, you've had, numerous jobs and money, and it's just like it's harder to be envious at that point because you've had so much. And it's kind of like when you're older, it's like, okay, I kind of understand who I am. I understand what I can and can't do, and you make peace with it. And then the people who do it better don't bother you anymore. But when you're younger, they bother you because false ego it has more intensity when you're young. It's hard to be humble. It's easier to be humble when you're older. Well, for some people. Not sure about Donald Trump, but other people. Other people. Devotee people, yeah. You know, it's like we should be happy when someone's successful. Because that success is pleasing Prabhupada. And when he's happy, we should be happy. And so you go through your whole life not being happy when someone does something better. And it just tears your heart out. And at some point in your life, you just say, that's it. Finished. I don't want to live like this. And you change. The same thing with humility. I'm sick of being proud. I'm sick of not being humble. Whatever it is, I'm sick of being resentful, or lacking compassion, or being out of integrity with my values. Any of these things, at a certain point in your life, you might just go, that's it, I'm finished. And that's a part of maturing. Yeah, so we have this joke. When you're 20, like all you think about is what other people think about you. You're like so absorbed. And then you get 45, 50, you go like, it's like, I'm sick of this, I don't want to think about it. Then you get like 65 and you realize nobody was thinking about you. Nobody cared, because they all cared about what everyone was thinking about them. And so that naturally happens in life. Doesn't it? Yes. Is that okay? It's hard to be humble, but it's harder not to be. You should always remember this. You know, to develop these qualities, we say it's so hard. But it's harder not to. I always used to say on Sankirtan, it's much more difficult to distribute a few books than it is to distribute a lot of books. Because when you do a lot of books, you have to be enthusiastic. You have to be in the right consciousness. Everything has to be right. And to do a few books, you have to be in the wrong consciousness. So even though you only did a few books, it was much harder than doing a lot of books. So if you're in the right consciousness, then it's easier to be humble. And if you're in the wrong consciousness, it's really difficult to be humble. And then you think it's hard to be humble, but it's not. It's hard not to be humble. That's a better way to think, isn't it? It's hard, so hard to be humble. Yeah, but it's harder not to be. And how does that affect your spiritual life? Gaia, you have to sing your question. You can't ask it.
It's not a question.
Oh, a statement.
Yeah.
Can you sing it for us?
Yes.
Sing it. She's the next American Idol. I'm training her up.
But I really have. I mean, if you're insistent.
No, I'm trying to encourage you.
Okay. But I was just. I don't know if it was one of your lectures or if it was somebody else's lecture. But they were busy saying how in order to make progress in spiritual life, it's like we have a string between, we're holding a string like this, and the bottom is I don't deserve it, and the top is I really want it, and we have to keep the string taut, and if it goes too much that way, then it's not beneficial. If it goes too much that way, it's not beneficial.
Yeah.
So I like that.
I like that example. It must have been Keshava Swami. It sounds like something he would say. Yeah. I mean, you want to be positive even though there's so many reasons not to be, right? And you want to be falsely optimistic, you want to be realistic. Yes?
Just one thing that was funny that you reminded me, there's a country western song that says, Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was thinking of was, I had someone, and I was telling them about the glories of taking yoga classes, and they said, I could never do a yoga class because I'm not flexible. So, well,
That's why you do it.
that's why you do it. And you start off not flexible.
Yeah.
You get more flexible. You just have to be consistent.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, Swayambhava Swami, he recommends journaling, and he's done journaling for like 20 years, and he notices the change from 20 years past.
Yeah. That's a really good point. A lot of times you actually are getting better, but you don't notice it. But if you journal, these are all the problems I have and what I want to do. And you read 20 years later, you'll see most of those problems are gone. You just have a new set, but you don't have those. I went to a workshop like 20 years ago and I said, like they said, what's your intention? I said, I want to teach bhakti. That's all I want to do is teach bhakti, and I don't want to do anything else for money. I just want to teach bhakti and have myself supported by it. And like last year I was reading it from like 2004 and I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing, you know. So, but you could easily take it for granted and forget that I was in a different place then. So you are better off than you used to be, but we're not perfect yet, and it's okay. I don't want to say it's okay not to be perfect. What I mean is it's natural, but you can't be perfect overnight. So in that sense, you're on course. You're not perfect, but you're on course as long as you're trying, right? You like that song? You're not perfect, but you're on course as long as you're trying. I'm not perfect, but I'm on course as long as I'm trying. I'm getting better every day. Oh, I'm not giving up this day, no matter what happens. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Next song is dedicated to Murari Gupta. Sitaram, 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 Guru Sitaram, 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 Jai Ram, Sri Ram, Jai Ram. Never give up no matter how bad things are, 'cause Krishna still loves me and he wants me to try hard. And it doesn't matter how good that I am, it only matters that I try to love him. Gaur Premanandi.